The following is an original production of AZPM News.
For Arizona Public Media, I'm Erika Hamden, professor of astrophysics at the University of Arizona, and this is Arizona Science. Joining me today is Julia Tetrault, a National Weather Service meteorologist, to talk about the monsoon. Welcome, Julia.
Hello.
So first things first, I used to live in New Jersey. They don't get monsoons there. And I used to live in LA, and they don't really get monsoons there either. So, why does the monsoon happen here?
It's very specific due to how we're set up. The monsoon overall is driven by a pattern of high pressure that will slowly drift from Mexico over to Arizona. So that's the main driving force, is where that high pressure sits. That high pressure allows moisture to come into the area, and that's pretty much the main driver of the monsoon as a whole. It's that unique setup that gives us that overall season.
So how does the high pressure drive in moisture?
Yeah, so high pressure is going to be clockwise upper air motion. So that's drawing in from moisture sources all the way from Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, however you want to call it, Gulf of California, evapotranspiration from some of the fields in Sonora, Mexico, the southern plains as well. It's drawing in from all of those moisture sources, depending on how that high pressure actually sets up.
So the high pressure is it's almost like a vacuum, pulling things towards it?
Kind of. The atmosphere is pretty much just a push and pull of wind, right? And it's those high pressures and those low pressures that really drive everything. So it's the motion around those.
Okay. And does the heat play a role in that? Is it because of the heat that this happens, or is there some other driver?
Yeah. So what's really unique is we think high and dry. We'll get that when the high pressure's over us or is really strong over us. But that unique kind of feature allows for that to happen. In terms of temperature, we actually need temperatures to actually come first in order to start that kind of monsoon process. It's one of the key thunderstorm ingredients. We have first our moisture. That's one setup we need to have in place. The atmosphere needs to be ready to go. We need a form of lift. So something like orographic lift is very common.
What's orographic?
Yes. So orographic lift is terrain, our mountains. That's why we start to see our cumulus clouds tower up first over the mountains, because air is actually physically going up with upslope motion and driving that lifting mechanism. And then the last thing is we need it to be unstable. We need an unstable atmosphere. How do you get that? Your hot temperatures. So you want all of that air to want to start to rise, especially on the valley floors. Once we get outflow boundaries, because we have storm come up, storm come down, introduce that wind. When those two boundaries collide, if there's storms around, that introduces the lifting mechanism. And because the atmosphere is so unstable, it's already got that moisture, that's when we get storms in the valleys. So it's a very, very, very unique setup.
So you need the heat to kind of create some of that instability and some of that uplift. Can it be too hot where it'll fizzle out, or is more heat more monsoon? It
kind of depends. Typically, we'll see kind of our, quote, bigger monsoon days on the cusp of the end of a heat wave. We kind of saw that a little bit last week, just because we're so unstable. We're so ready to go. There hasn't been that moisture in place for a while, because typically when we have that heat right over us, that high pressure right over us, we tend to dry out because we lose the moisture source because of where that high is actually drifted.
Okay.
It's not pulling anything over us anymore. It's pulling it somewhere else. So when we lose that, or we're recycling the same amount of moisture, eventually it's just going to fizzle out. So we're waiting for that push and pull. It's a cat and a mouse dance pretty much between the heat versus the storms.
Okay. How do you feel like this year's monsoon has been going?
I mean, regionally, looking at some of the numbers, a lot of places are doing pretty well, about 200 to 300% above normal for this time of year in some places, especially areas south and east, along the international border, Cochise County and Santa Cruz County in particular. They've seen about 10 to 12 inches locally. It's been nice for them. Pockets of the Tucson metro have seen better or worse, usually along the foothills, because of that, where those storms set up because of the terrain. We'll get more rain typically. So if you're in the foothills on the east side, you might have a little bit more rain, but there is variability within Tucson metro itself.
Sometimes it'll rain at my house, and I have a little weather station. So I measure how much rain we get, and then I check to see how much rain did they get at the airport, because that's the official like
Correct.
Tucson location. And I'm like, it didn't even rain at the airport. Like
Yeah.
they got nothing and I got like, half inch.
We joke. I joke. It's the Tucson donut where it's just the storm's going right towards the airport. I'm like, yes, you will get something. And it's like, no, it'll all average out. That's why it's a climate site.
Yeah.
It's been there for a long time now, and we maintain that equipment, so we know it's working. It's up to snuff. So it just takes the matter of rain falling into the bucket and getting collected.
Was the site located there for any particular reason?
It's more so typically we have our own equipment that we maintain. Because we maintain that equipment, we can reliably trust that. And those are usually most of the time co-located with airports because we care about airport safety. And one of the things we do is forecast for terminal aerodrome forecasts. So you can land and take off safely and kind of know when storms could be around the area. And one of the things we need to look at is what the wind is doing at the airport. So the towers know and airport operations know if they need to switch configuration. So that's one of the reasons why we actually have them set up there. So they've just been there a long time. So it helps that we know it's our equipment and it's working as intended and we can maintain it. And it's just always going to be there.
That's good to know. So the airport needs to know the weather anyway.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know about how you feel like the monsoon has changed over the years. I feel like from a year to year basis, it's massively variable, but I'm thinking more like big picture, like what do we know how it was like 100 years ago?
Every monsoon has its own kind of flavor and dynamic. It's always going to have that year-to-year variability. You can try to compare them to like El Nino years and La Nina years and try to do your best to have any correlation with those. But overall, it's always a mixed bag. Even looking far back, it's always there's good years and there's bad years. I think the main thing is we have so much data now. We have so many networks like yourself having rain gauges in your backyard, and we can see that information in real time. That's a huge game changer. And just weather and knowing where flooding could happen, things like that. The access to that has changed very greatly. So sometimes we just wouldn't know that that's actually things are happening, right? We don't necessarily have ground truth for everything because if, like you mentioned, there's so much variability at the airport. We joke, climatologically, if it didn't rain at the airport, it didn't happen. But that's kind of true, right? If we don't hear about weather-related impacts and things like that, then we just don't know about it. So I think that's one of the big things that social media, just hearing from other people's stories about how weather affected them, I think we just can get more in tune with our local communities more so than just relying on the newspaper because we can only do so much with that.
Right. It's interesting that you bring up the El Nino, La Nina stuff because I feel like on like a national level, they'll be like, oh, it's an El Nino year, therefore there will be like some trend. But then I feel like that actually never applies here, really. Like I haven't found that particular.
Yeah, it really depends. For our monsoon, it's really because it's a hyper local thing, right? It's just that high pressure that drives us. El Nino's not really talking about that. It's talking about much bigger scales, like how the jet stream sets up. And sometimes that can have impacts to where the high pressure can set up. But overall, that's really not where it's going to like actually come into play. More so comes into play with our winter season where that jet stream shuts up and things like that for that low pressure systems to come on through, or atmospheric rivers. You've probably heard those terms too, if those come into our area.
If you can see that, something is coming that is going to cause a lot of instability, there's a lot of moisture, like the conditions are right, how do you kind of work with the local municipalities about like expected rain amounts and flooding and kind of the impacts of some of the storms, the winds and everything?
Yeah, we're in constant communication with our folks. If we're seeing those ingredients come together in spectacular fashion, we will usually hoist up a flash flood watch of some kind, really get the message out that pings people's weather apps and pings their phones. But in terms of local partners as well, we'll tend to spin up a live stream and we'll talk to people, say this is the scenario, this is how we're thinking it's going to set up, and that allows people to ask their questions. But we also have other ways like email, phone calls. We'll get calls constantly about how the situation has changed. But that's the big one, is that we'll do a big kind of Zoom and talk about what we're thinking. And really, that's our chance to express our confidence. But more so in the day-to-day, we do a forecast discussion at least twice a day. In the monsoon, we add a third in the morning to really talk about this afternoon and what we can expect. And that's more so.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel that people struggle with those percentages?
I think a lot of people do struggle sometimes with probabilities. It's hard if you're not in a scientific world all the time. I deal with numbers literally all the time. And if you're not really in that headspace, or it's been so long that you don't know how to remember how to interpret it anymore, I can understand that's really hard to really understand, especially like if we talk about percentiles and what the difference is with that. Like, you lose a lot of your audience at that stage. So a lot of people don't understand even what our probability of precipitation is. Our POP, when we get that in your weather app, that is your chance of receiving 1/100th of rain. That is the definition.
1/100th of an inch?
1/100th of an inch of rain. Yes. So it's little things like that that people just don't know. And I don't blame them. That's hard to like be the expert on everything.
What actually sets the dates that you guys have for like when it's monsoon season and when it isn't?
We go by June 15th through September 30th. It's kind of the general average of when we've seen that reversal of wind, because we have that high pressure setup. We get that southeast flow versus our normal setup, which is our dry southwest flow. So that's the main thing we're looking for, is that reversal of wind, allowing that moisture to come in. And kind of the average, you've probably heard the 55-degree dew point, 3 consecutive days. That was kind of the old terminology. Those dates are kind of based on that, when we get that moisture at the surface and then when we don't have that moisture in the surface anymore. That doesn't mean I will get a storm on June 15th. No. And I will stop having storms on September 30th. That's not how this works. It's just like winter. You don't necessarily have snow, right? First day of winter, right? You could have it throughout the whole winter season. So it's like that. Monsoon's a season.
If people want to be able to like check for themselves, what's happening today, read the forecast discussion, like where can they go to find that information?
Yeah. weather.gov/Tucson. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's a little pen and paper that says forecast discussion. It's right there.
And updated 3 times a day during monsoon season.
Correct.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us, Julia.
Of course.
This is Erika Hamden, and you've been listening to Arizona Science. We've been talking with Julia Tetrault, a National Weather Service meteorologist, about the monsoon season here in southern Arizona. You can hear more of this conversation and others on our Arizona Science segments by going to azpm.org/Arizona Science.
This has been an original production of AZPM News.